Okay, imagine this. You walk into the office kitchen and boom, someone's microwaved fish.
Oh, no. Yeah, that smell.
That smell, it doesn't just, hang in the air.
No, it sticks.
It really does. It sticks in your memory. You get that, visceral reaction, maybe an involuntary groan.
Definitely. It's pretty amazing how some smells just lodge themselves deep inside, emotionally.
Totally. So today, on the deep dive, that's our mission. We're going to really unpack this fascinating link between smell and emotion in the brain.
Yeah, looking at how the brain assigns that emotional value, positive or negative, to different odors.
And what that could mean for, well, our sensory health, our overall well-being. It's surprisingly important.
It really is. And the big question, really, from the research we looked at is, what actually makes our brain label a smell as bad? Or, how do smells get that emotional charge in the first place?
Right. How does that happen? It's a fundamental mystery researchers are starting to crack.
Shedding light on how we perceive the world through scent.
So let's start with why smell is, well, kind of special in this way. It seems so powerful.
It absolutely is. Think about how much our world uses scent to influence us.
Oh, yeah. Perfume, obviously.
Right? Or the smell of food cooking.
Makes you hungry instantly.
Yeah.
Or, walking past a bakery in a supermarket. That's not accidental.
Not at all. It's all designed to hit us emotionally. And compared to our other senses, smell has a really distinct influence.
So.
Well, Dan Wesson, he's a professor of pharmacology and therapeutics. He puts it like this. Odors are powerful at driving emotions.
Okay.
And it's long been thought that the sense of smell is just as powerful, if not more powerful, at driving an emotional response as a picture, a song, or any other sensory stimulus.
Wow. More powerful than a picture or a song. That's huge.
It is. And the reason seems to be anatomical, really. It's about the brain's wiring.
The direct route.
Exactly. All our senses connect with the amygdala, the brain's emotional center. But smell, it has this almost immediate pathway. It kind of skips some of the initial processing steps that other senses go through.
Like bypassing the main switchboard almost.
Sort of, yeah. It's a very unique connection. Sarah Sniffen, one of the lead researchers here, she said it perfectly. Your sense of smell is your most emotional sense.
That makes so much sense. That direct link explains why a smell can just instantly zap you back to a memory.
Precisely. Or trigger a really strong feeling without you even consciously thinking about it.
Okay, so smell has this VIP pass to the amygdala, our emotional hub. But how does the brain use that pass? How does it tell the difference between, fresh bread and burning rubber?
What's the actual mechanism?
Yeah.
So this is where the new research gets really interesting. The study we're looking at from UF Health researchers, it zeroed in on the amygdala's role.
Using mice?
Yes, they used mice. And that's important because, well, neurochemically, they're quite similar to us in relevant ways.
Yeah.
Plus, they can learn to associate smells with good or bad outcomes. They categorize odors.
Just like we do. Okay, so what was the big find?
The big discovery was identifying two specific types of brain cells in the amygdala. And crucially, they're genetically distinct.
Meaning they're fundamentally different types of cells.
Exactly. Different biological blueprints. And these two cell types seem to play this key role in assigning smells as either pleasant or unpleasant, like tiny emotional sorters for smells.
Wow. So one type handles good smells and the other handles bad smells.
Well, that's what you might intuitively think, right? And maybe what the researchers initially expected.
Yeah.
But here's the surprising twist. That's not what they found. It turns out the way the brain is organized gives both cell types the ability to signal either positive or negative.
Wait, really? So the cells themselves aren't inherently good or bad detectors?
Nope. They're more flexible than that.
Okay, then what decides if a smell gets flagged as good or bad, if it's not the cell type itself?
That's the million-dollar question they tackled. According to Dan Wesson again, it can make an odor positive or negative to you. And it all depends upon where that cell type projects in your brain and how it engages with structures in your brain.
Ah, so it's about the connections, where the signal goes after that cell.
Precisely. The same type of cell could be involved in processing a lovely smell or a nasty one, depending on its specific wiring and how it talks to other brain regions.
That's fascinating. It's not the switch, but the wires connected to the switch.
Kind of, yeah. It's the downstream pathway that determines the emotional flavor.
Okay, so let's bring this back. What does this mean for, everyday life? Why should you, listening right now, care about these specific brain cells?
Well, think about it. We're always breathing, right?
Constantly.
We're constantly breathing in and out. And that means that we're constantly receiving olfactory input, We're always smelling something.
Even if we don't notice it.
Exactly. And for some people, this constant input is, well, overwhelming or intensely negative.
You mean people with heightened sensory responses?
Yes, like individuals dealing with PTSD or anxiety or some forms of autism. For them, certain smells aren't just unpleasant, they can be profoundly disruptive. An outsized negative reaction can really impact daily life.
I can imagine every breath potentially carrying an emotional landmine.
It can feel that way for some, yeah. So this research isn't just academic, it's getting at something fundamental to quality of life.
Which brings us to potential clinical applications. If we understand the mechanism, can we tweak it?
That's the hope.
Yeah.
The potential for clinical use for emotional healing seems quite significant.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, think about someone, maybe a cancer patient, who associates the smell of the hospital or clinic with feeling nauseous from treatments like chemotherapy.
Right, a really strong negative link.
A very powerful learned aversion.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding these specific pathways, these genetically distinct cells and their connections, might open the door to adjusting that response.
Wow. Like retraining the brain.
Potentially. The researchers believe that by targeting the receptor systems, the little communication dots on these cells within these specific pathways, clinicians might be able to actually change those negative associations, modify the strength of that connection.
That sounds incredible, being able to dial down a distressing smell association.
Exactly. It could be life-changing. And it potentially works both ways.
What do you mean?
Well, you could potentially use medication or other therapies to suppress the activity in these pathways, helping people overcome really stressful, aversive emotional responses to smells like in PTSD or anxiety.
Okay. Dampening the bad feelings.
Yes. But conversely, you might be able to activate these pathways.
To what?
To restore enjoyment. Think about people who lose their sense of pleasure in things. Maybe lose their appetite because food just doesn't smell good anymore due to illness or depression.
Like bringing back the joy of smelling something delicious.
Precisely. This research offers a glimpse into potentially restoring that sensory pleasure, helping people reconnect with the enjoyable aspects of scent.
So it's not just about fixing the negative, but maybe enhancing the positive too, improving overall well-being.
That's the bigger picture, yeah. Gets back to what Dan Wesson said. Emotions, in part, dictate our quality of life. And we're learning more about how they arise in our brain. Understanding more about how our surroundings can impact our feelings can help us become happier, healthier humans.
It's about understanding how this constant sensory input shapes us and maybe gaining some control over it.
Exactly. Optimizing our experience.
And for anyone who wants to really get into the nuts and bolts, the study itself is called Directing Negative Emotional States Through Parallel Genetically Distinct Basolateral Amygdala Pathways to Ventral Striatum Subregions.
Yeah, by Sarah Sniffen, Sanguiniru, and their colleagues. It came out in Molecular Psychiatry not too long ago.
June 13th, 2025. Really groundbreaking stuff.
Yeah, it really feels like it, yeah. Could open up a lot of doors.
So to kind of wrap up where we've been, we started with that powerful, immediate impact of smell.
That direct line to the emotional brain, the amygdala.
Right. And then we got into this fascinating discovery, these two distinct types of brain cells that aren't inherently good or bad, but act like sorters based on where they send their signals.
Assigning that emotional charge, positive or negative, depending on the pathway.
It really shows that smell isn't just passive, it's actively, deeply shaping our inner world moment by moment.
Often completely below our conscious radar.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on.
Yeah.
How much of your own emotional landscape day to day do you think is being subtly nudged or shaped by the invisible world of smells around you?
Interesting question.
And knowing now about this direct brain link and this potential for influencing those associations, imagine if you could consciously reshape your relationship with smells for, greater well-being.
Like choosing your olfactory environment more carefully.
Maybe. Or just noticing it more. What new scents might you actively seek out now? Or what old smells, maybe ones you disliked, might you reconsider, knowing how profoundly they could be impacting your inner state?
Food for thought. Or maybe scent for thought.